Now, gonna raise a fuss and gonna raise a holler. Bradley Rock, Bradley Rock. Brad on rock, Brad on rock. You like that, Brad? There you go. Now, you're talking about your left hand. Basically, if you've got a left hand, or non-dominant hand, that's, I think you use the word sloppy or slow or something like that, unison work, okay? And what happens with unison work is that the dominant hand, in this case my right hand, you do the same thing. So you can call it flat flams. Now, here we go. Flat flams is the Joe Morello term, okay, when you're playing two things. Now, Matt Morgan, you've asked me about Joe Morello and all this, so I'm trying to keep the continuity, you see. Now, what happens, Brad, if we're going to do the typical build, there. Now, what you've got there is with your left hand, you are mimicking the right hand, right? And then with the accents, there's a certain kind of finger control, in this case with the traditional grip, that Virgil and Arnie uses, keeping it all together. You have what is known as the whip stroke, which is famous for Joe Morello as well, you know. And there you go there. See, there's that. So, and it's like you're symmetrical, you see. So that's a great thing to do. Now, what happens is Earl Palmer is the dude. I've mentioned him before. Love Earl Palmer, and his brother Harry. And sorry about that. Now, what's this sounding like, eh? And so what I'm doing is a whip stroke, which Joe Morello is famous for, right? That kind of thing. Like there's threes, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Can you see the sort of pump action there? And there's that. You see? That's what goes on. Hey, bah. And then when you're doing that, that goes to Thomas Prigden and Virgil Donatis, in the sense that when you're doing things like a whip stroke, now a whip stroke and you really got down and up strokes to a certain degree, and Joe Morello was one of the great students of George Lawrence Stone, and and at the same time there was Sanford Moeller with his Moeller technique. Now, he didn't invent it. He never said that he did, but it's named after him, much the same way as Billy Gladstone has the Gladstone technique. And he said he never invented it either, but that's finger control. And whilst researching this today, I was watching Thomas Prigden talk about exactly that. So everything is beautifully coming together, you see, because you'd think, what's Thomas Prigden got to do with Joe Morello? Not much, but there it is. So what happens is when you've got a whip stroke, you come down and then you come up for the others. So it'd be 1, 2, 3. You can almost see it like an angle. You see, there's your downstroke. Okay, so then you've got 10 and 20, whatever it is. It changes depending on the speed and the stroke, of course. And then what you do is you do it both together. This is Earl Palmer, and when he's doing these kinds of things, you keep a knocking but you can't come in by Little Richard. And then good old John Henry Bonham, Andrew, again. Okay, and what happens, I'm getting to what you specifically asked me about in a sec. But what goes on is that if you're actually doing that, if you're going to play normal rock beat, play both-handed, it's whipping. You see, you got that. And then do your accents, right? Bum, 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 bum. Oh, slip there. Sorry. There you go. So there it is. And what happens then is that you do that same kind of whipping, the vipping post. Okay, that's a Frank Zappa reference. Anyway, you can whip with your paradiddles, you see. See, right, left, paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. Now I'm going to move to Thomas Brigden and back to Virgil, because they're masters at the paradiddle, being able to whip each side of a paradiddle, whether it's a single paradiddle, a double paradiddle, triple, whatever it is. So what you've got then is, see, and right, left, so right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. And then what happens with that? You can mix up your paradiddles. You can mix it all up with those whip strokes, and what you've got is a bit of Karate Kid happening. Wax off, yeah, wax on, yeah, and all that sort of stuff. Oh boy. I haven't had a beer today. I'm doing all this sober again. I gotta stop making those jokes. And that's what happens there. Now that goes to some of the real power kind of funk that Thomas Brigden is sort of famous for, with Mars Volta and all that sort of stuff. And what you've got there is sort of like a really wound up thing, you know, like if I'm doing a paradiddle. So you get all those kinds of things, and it's really sort of powery, you know, sort of thing. Yeah, you've got that kind of business. And that's what he's sort of famous for, you know. And he also has very similar things from what I was talking about with inside and outside sticks and stuff, in the sense that when I was doing the research and watching some of the vids on YouTube and all that, he's talking about finger control. He made a reference to Dennis Chambers. And Dennis Chambers has been on the show, so I might put that up later on, sort of thing. That was around about, oh boy, a while ago now, 1999, I think. That was a long time ago. We were younger men, and we men. Anyway, what happened? He's talking about finger control, then he talks about being fingers, and then put the hand over, you see. So you got that kind of finger control, then you bring the hand over, and then you see? I'm just slapping around there, but I hope you're getting the idea. And that's what happens with that, you see.